Why do you feel stuck even when you know so much? It's not your stuck, it's your state. For builders who nailed the tech and now face the rest, this is UNCODED, translating tech into profit. Good evening, everybody. This is UNCODED. Welcome to this episode. This evening we have Joel Benge. I hope that the pronunciation is correct. Joel.
Benge like Stonehenge.
Yeah. Joel Benge is a guy from Washington area. He is a very interesting chap because he is a technologist by profession. He has been working in the technology industry in several big corporations. But then he discovered a side of himself which is not absolutely, a standard side, because now he's working in communicating technology, which I found really, really nice, because it does it with grace and with humor, which is always a good thing to do. So, welcome to UNCODED, Joel. Let me start to ask you some question just to reach the right point in our conversation. You told me that you have been catching by my banner in my LinkedIn profile, where I say that I help founders after they build the technology to build the rest. We have been discussing about the fact that, in this company with young guys, one of the most important things to understand for them is they don't build anything alone. Alone, you don't build anything. You have to build something. If you want to build something, you have to build something with someone else. Can you tell me a little bit of your experience about this?
Sure. So you're correct. My background is as a technologist, but before that, I was very creative. I was in the theater and in video
you have
games.
been working. Yeah. Sorry,
And so I come at this from a humanistic perspective, and I've seen teams built, and I've been part of teams. I've built teams. I've been on the outside most recently in branding and marketing, mostly seeing about how companies and founders talk about their technology. And I found that when you have a really smart founder who built a thing and they're very proud of it, and they may have a little team around them, but they hold a little too close to themselves, the opportunity that they miss is to build that team. You may hire somebody, but if you don't really bring them into the vision you have for that technology or the problem that it's solving, you will have problems scaling to a point. And so I love on your LinkedIn banner, for the people who have built the technology and then need to figure everything else out. Yeah. I think the next step, or the first step of everything else, is taking a step back, reflecting on what you've built, and formalizing that so that you can pass that to coworkers, people who work for you, early customers, early consumers, and ultimately to investors. Investors are not interested in technology. They're interested in results and upside. And if you can't demonstrate, you can have the coolest technology in the world. You can have the coolest special sauce, machine learning, AI, agentic, whatever we're talking about now this week. But if it doesn't solve a problem that's valuable, and if you don't understand that, then you've built a toy. Yeah.
And you know what, talking about these and mostly in AI, because nowadays AI seems to be everywhere, and it is everywhere. I am starting to realize the fact that, I have a lot of prospect, not customer yet, but prospect that they are solopreneurs hitting 100K MRR already with no team, The only problem that they have, they are not able to scale, obviously, because they are alone, so they are not able to scale. But actually, they don't worry too much about it because they think that they can continue to go on like that, at that kind of revenue, and without having the need of confronting the outside world. And I realized because at the beginning, my idea was that in order to reach a certain point, a certain market penetration, you have to spend time. But nowadays, these AI startups are very fast. They scale. They grow very fast. They grow in a way that I have not seen any other company grow so fast. They grow very fast. They grow very messy.
Messy.
And
Yes.
yeah, if they are not able to reconfigure the way in a team perspective, in the way they are bringing on the market the things that they do, they will be having problem. And I try to talk with them and so on.
Without a doubt, I think the AI and all the tools and the platforms have made it very easy for solopreneurs, small teams, or even individuals to build very impressive technologies, but they're not building it by themselves. They're building it on the backs of platforms. They're bolting things together. We've got a lot of vibe coding stuff happening, and you deploy a vibe coded application to the marketplace. As a former cybersecurity guy, that makes my hair, whatever's left of it, stand on end, because you need a team. You need someone to look at the guts of what you've built before you expose it to the broader marketplace. And if you're right, it's a messy growth path. It's a possible one, but and maybe they're thinking, I'll bring in vendors, I'll bring in partners, I'll just Fiverr it. I hear this a ton in startups. We'll just grab somebody from Upwork, we'll just Fiverr it, and you waste cycles. That's when you start to lose money, because you're wasting cycles and opportunity, because you haven't brought that person in, you haven't fully articulated your vision. They'll build something for you, and it won't work. So I do not remember who it was that said this, but I heard a secondhand quote where somebody was saying, we're probably going to be, in the next couple of years, seeing the first $1 billion single person company built on the back. Yes.
Mr. Altman,
I disagree with that, because you know why he said that? Because he's selling the tool that he hopes people will buy into.
Conflict
that was a sales pitch. Yeah, total sales pitch.
It's a good sell pitch. But this Saltman declaration, actually, it was, last week I was reading about it, and it was basically a podcast or a video somewhere on YouTube where he was interviewed by a guy, and he was explaining to this guy that he has a chat between his, technologist friend and CEO technology friend. And in this chat, there was a bet about the first unicorn, only AI unicorn. The funny thing about it is that in the same period, I was reading a book, which is a very nice book written by Gary Hamel, which is a famous strategist, the inventor of core competence and so on, with Michele Zanini, which is an Italian, but he lives in California. And the title of the book is Humanology, which is basically speaking exactly the opposite. In order to grow company and grow company talent, you need to involve talented people, because otherwise you will not go anywhere. So there is this, and now it's very clear in AI they are hiring people with billions of salary, because they are not able to find any more people at a certain level. It's a very nice contrast between the two ideas. I don't think that AI will ever grow a unicorn company. I really don't think, because I strongly believe that people, humans, are at the center of the world, and entrepreneurs are mainly at the center of the world. But I
It's an
am very curious to get to understand from you the intricacy of your work. So how do you prepare yourself when you have to meet a startup, or you have to meet the corporation, or you have to meet the manager that had to produce a speech, or have to talk about something, or have to produce a landing page or whatever? How do you work with them? How do you build the process by which you elicit? Because I think that you will have to get out of them the passion, the emotion to say something meaningful. How it works?
Well, as a technologist, I don't claim to know all technologies. I was a military kid growing up in the United States, so we moved around a lot. So I learned how to keep my ears open and how to mimic and how to pick up accents and fit myself into many different cultures and groups. You drop me into any state in the United States, and in about an hour, I'll probably be sounding like them, which is kind of hard because I don't have my own accent. But I've learned to adapt that to technology, and the first thing I do is listen. As a consultant, as a coach, I'm not there in the first place to teach them or impart what I know. I need to understand a baseline of where they are, what they're about, understand the technology to the best of my ability. But then I start asking questions, and the first thing I'm doing is I'm listening for certain keys. My general first part of my concept is there are three organs that, as human beings, that we use to make decisions and process information. We obviously know the head, the brain, and that's where most people stop, especially in technology. But if we look at Aristotle, we've got the heart, we have emotion, the pathos, and we have the gut feeling. So I developed a card game that I use, and in that system, the organs are represented by the heart, the head, and the gut. And the first thing I'm listening for, I assume that the technology is sound. It's not really my realm to get into that. But I look to whether they're talking about their technology passionately. Where is that passion coming from? Is it a passion from the technology itself? Is it a passion about the problem they're solving? The card deck that I use is sort of a prompting exercise to get them thinking with their heart or with their gut. Gut is more about credibility. And I start to identify gaps in their messaging. And I might just say, hey, I know that you really love this headline that you're using on your website. How does that make you feel? What do you think about this headline? And it might be something, to me, which is very bland. Our technology, your success, or something like that, which, okay, hundreds of companies can say the exact same thing. But what is it about that you really love? I try to get to what I call the big idea. And from there, I start digging a little bit deeper. I start talking about the stories that they tell each other, the stories, how they tell their audience, how they fit with how their technology fits within their context, and this starts to build out a pyramid, almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So sort of from the top down, we go from the very high emotional, low density, low technical density thoughts down to the very bottom. The root of the pyramid is technical details. And I talk about this in my recent book, Be a Nerd That Talks Good, kind of goes through each of what those layers are. But the idea is, as you have a conversation with somebody, or as they move through your website, or as they sit through your presentation, there's a linear progression of what type of message they need to hear. You've got to hook them emotionally. You've got to deliver the right information, but not too much to overload their primitive caveman emotional brain. And then you've got to seal the deal with credibility. So throughout the conversation, I'm pulling out from them and seeing where the gaps are. And if it turns out that there are a lot of gaps, we move towards the workshop that I do, which is using the card deck literally almost as a tarot card or as a prompting function, where I can ask an entire room of people by holding up a card, what's something we're changing about our industry? Or who do we advocate for? That's a very emotional thing. I might work with, I say, managed service providers. Almost all managed tech service providers do the exact same thing, but they're not the same. You might have one that specifically works with, municipal utilities. You might have one that specifically works with construction companies or mom and pop small builders. And I want to know why. Why do you work with those people? Well, because they're really building homes for people that need it. Okay, well then you're not just a managed service provider. You are supporting shelter for all or something. There's a way that we work it through. And like you say, I have to elicit from them things that they know, things that are part of their culture, but they may not even be aware of it themselves. Sometimes in these exercises, I'll find 3 or 4 people are saying something that on the surface the words are different, but when I look at it, take a step back, and I look at sort of the core of what's underneath the message, I'll say, hey, you may not realize this, but there's a thought here maybe about looking out for the underdog. Have you ever used that in any of your messaging? And they'll go, we had no idea we were all thinking the same thing. And it's gold. It's a part of you, but because when you sit down to do messaging or do marketing, it becomes a cerebral, analytical exercise. And so I'm using the card deck and my prompting exercises as a forcing mechanism to keep them on their toes. And I play other games. So a workshop with me is like a party game evening where we're just playing cards. And by the end of it, we have of 400 or 500 really solid directions for the messaging, and then I take it back, compile, and return either a report or work with their internal people or their marketing functions to build their messaging, and then on the backs of that we do websites and social media and everything. So, but it all starts with that conversation and listening.
2 things I want to tell you. First of all, I don't know if you are aware, but probably not, but there is a company, is a startup, there are a couple of guys in Turin that have been inventing these cards, specific card for innovation. They use it in a similar way to what you do with their customer. I've bought all of them, but I don't know what they are as of now.
I'd love for you to tell me. The card decks are a very large. Card deck facilitation has become a very large thing, I found.
Yeah.
There are the pip decks, which are very good, more for planning out a meeting and planning out how you're going to do facilitation. I'm a very big fan down in New Zealand. There's a company, Riders and Elephants. They have a card deck on emotion, and the whole purpose of their workshop is not one dimensional, but it's getting to what feelings do we want people to feel either within our company, a customer experience deck, and they've built a bunch of different directions for that. I've taken their master classes before. What I do is a little bit more free form because I don't like rules. I don't like to walk in with preconceived notions. So it's a bit of a free form. It's something that people can do themselves with the deck. It's much better with an outside person who can ask the dumb questions and go, why? The rule of 3 whys. But it's just a way of prompting you to think about things that you might not have previously thought about.
Yeah. I have a question for you, which, as I was telling you before, during this day I'm writing a little bit some of my coaching framework, and I was reflecting on this specific concept. So when you work with someone, you work because your customer, your client, thinks he has a problem, or he has a pain that wants you to fix, or in some way he has an expectation that you will help him to fix what he feels is a problem. When you engage a conversation, you for what happened to me, and it normally happens every time, you lose sight after a while of the problem in hand. I mean, you stop looking at the whole situation with the eye of the problem, but you start to dig deep. The deeper you dig, the more things you get out, and you have a clearer understanding of what is in front of you. What is that you do in order to, I would not say formalize, but in order to create a common ground of understanding between you and your customer? I was thinking to invent something with models and reference model and so on, in order to have a conversation, but then remain with something in hand which tell us what was distilled in the conversation and is a common understanding on the things we have been discussing. Do you have this kind of thing in your work or not?
I have something similar, which is, obviously the understanding of the problem has to be upfront, and that's why the first thing that I do is that messaging assessment, and I identify the gaps and opportunities, and I use that as a document that I point back to, and either in a regular checkup or just in a meeting. We've spent a lot of time working on this thing that we already agreed and identified was a problem. Do we feel like we've got that one covered, or is that one 60% better? Let's move on to the next one. So I do think formalizing it is important. So that you have a direct line to point to. But I also think that's important to avoid scope creep, which is, hey, I understand you want me to do that, but how does that serve these things that we already want to work on? I've got a client right now. I love them to death. I've done the messaging with them, relaunched their website. I'm helping to consult and manage on the social media, and we've just now started getting into the point where we've hit a cadence of their content, and I'm starting to, because I'm still on the outside. I've been working with them for almost 2 years, but I still feel as if I'm on the outside because I'm not having those day-to-day conversations with them. And all of a sudden we want to be able to push out AI generated videos twice a week, and I'm like, well, time out. To what end? Is that something we want to do because we think AI is cool? I agree. That's not something that's squarely in my wheelhouse. As a nerd, I would love to spend your retainer time teaching myself how to do that. I mean, always look for an opportunity to learn on somebody else's dime has been a big theme in my life. But to what end? Are we servicing the things that we set down 2 years ago? Do we need to revisit those now? And you need to do that regularly. But I think having that formalized, it doesn't have to be in stone, because you can always make the decision to say, this is a new need that has come up. This is a new opportunity, and the other ones we're feeling much better about. We don't need to worry about those. But like you said, things get lost, things get forgotten, and then eventually you come back around and you're doing who knows what with your client, and you're no longer servicing the basics and the fundamentals that need to be taken care of day to day.
While what has been the situation where everything was immediately clear and you just shout the right messages immediately because you got it clearly in front of you?
I don't believe in the eureka moment for many things, and the reason for that is I'm always much more concerned with the intent of a message. I mean, I've been a content writer. I've written headlines. I don't consider myself the snappiest headline person, but I can work with a headline person and give them, I want 3 different ways to say this. This is where AI is coming in very handy, unfortunately, because it is replacing kind of that that scaling factor. And yeah, I would say 65-70% of what I'm getting out of a lot of the LLMs are kind of garbage, but they're not worthless.
You know,
They're it's like Edison said, I've discovered 1,999 ways that this doesn't work, but boy, the one that comes through is very helpful. But then you can't fall in love with it. You have to then draw that line back to your first principles messaging and saying, does this sound like us? Do I just love this because it sounds like something I've heard elsewhere? I have another card deck in mind that I'm working on, which is a periodic table of bad market messaging, which is, several hundred of those lines that we see and we're like, oh yeah, that sounds good. We say that internally because it's familiar to us.
yeah, yeah.
What's in your wallet? Obviously, everybody's using that one now. We do X so you can Y. My absolute favorite is at the speed of. Business at the speed of the data, at the speed of the cloud, at the speed of your mission, at the speed of your customers, at the speed of your business. It's like they sound good because they're comfortable, but they mean nothing.
They mean nothing. But you will be happy to know that the first episode of this podcast was with the guy in California, former Google marketer, whose name is Chris Wood, which said during the recording that AI is absolutely not able to do any marketing.
I'm glad to hear that from him because I have many peers that are seem to believe the counter to that.
Yeah.
And I use it. I think it's a great tool, but I will never trust an organization that feels that they can just dump something in and release it. Same as we were talking earlier with the vibe coding and the building product. We're always going to need smart people in the loop.
Yeah, I think that emotion are important, and the way you reach them is even more important.
Yes.
So LLM, yeah. They do a wonderful job for us. I use it very much, but I would never use them for a message. In fact, all the message I write, which I think are very poor, by the way, normally, because I'm not very good in that, but I never write them with an LLM. And then whatever, the point is that I will not say that I know how LLM work because they are very complex. But that is the exact problem. How can you trust something that is based on 3 billion parameter?
The basic way I understand, and again, I pretend to understand this technology stuff, is it's much in the difference between a very nice roast chicken and a chicken McNugget, where they're made of the same thing. Mm-hmm. They've stripped away in the chicken nuggets case and basically turned it into slime and repackaged it to look like food and painted it to look like food. It'll do the trick, but if it's not high cuisine, and if I really want a nice roast chicken with some potatoes and vegetables and herbs, that takes effort to do. Yeah. You can't push a button to make that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is probably last question, and I want to ask you, what are you expecting in the future from this new AI wave that it seems to to invade, to fill up all the gaps in our society? What do you think it will happen in the future?
I'm extremely optimistic about what it's going to mean to enable people, enable people with different abilities or things of that nature to I think right now we're at this point where we see AI as just being the art bot, the chat bot. There's a lot of other things in technology, medicine, space, just contextualizing, seeing the world around us in different ways. I am concerned, I think as most people are, with the ultimate impact of that on economies and workforces. But whoever thought that content creator was going to be an actual job, and it is an actual job, right?
Absolutely.
If we didn't have the internet, we wouldn't have that.
Absolutely.
Who thought that somebody making car accessories, right? I think we're looking at the jobs that are going to be created around this new technology are going to surprise us. We have no idea what they're going to be. I was talking with a client, same client who was really hot to trot on the AI video, and he says, a surfer doesn't fight against the current because you can't. A surfer stays up by going with the current. And, unfortunately, we're all in the same tsunami wave. We don't have a choice to get out of the water right now, so we have to figure out how to go with the current.
Absolutely. Okay, we have been closing our time. We spent 30 minutes together. I thank you very much for your participation to the podcast. I hope to talk with you soon again. And best of luck for whatever you are doing today and in the future. Thank you very much.
It was a real pleasure. Thanks for having me, Maurizio.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode. Follow the show so you don't miss any episode. And remember, for those looking for the secret sauce, there is none in the soup.